It's kind of an old school tech thing that a lot of the access to OpenAI in China was through VPN, which is what people do to stream things in different places. But give me more details on this story.
Well, what we know, Ed, is that Chinese developers will have this access cut off starting in July, as you mentioned. This really originated through local media reporting, which cited screenshots that had this OpenAI memo to developers saying they were going to have this access removed. OpenAI has now confirmed the decision to Bloomberg News earlier this morning that it is, in fact, taking, quote, additional steps to block API traffic from regions where we do not support access to OpenAI's services. Now, this is not the first time that China has come against the crosshairs of American tech companies and even regulators here and U.S. officials who believe that China is using this technology for more nefarious purposes. Now, OpenAI really started ratcheting up its own actions against who it believes is bad actors and using its technology perhaps to you manipulate public opinion, for example. Remember that report in May, Ed, that said Russia, China, Iran, and Israel were using OpenAI to manipulate public opinion. So you really see these actions really starting to take shape here.
There's two sides to the story, right? There's the use of the technology by malicious actors or unauthorized actors, and also, I think, a data access point. But there's also a competition side of the story, right? You have domestic champions in China like Baidu that are building large language models, big large language models to support generative AI technology. Give me that side of the story.
Well, they were quick to pounce on the fact that now there's this wide swath of developers who need AI technology to turn to. And so what some of these local reports were saying is that they started appealing to developers and saying, hey, come switch to our tech. Really goes to show that there is this, not just this technology battle, but there's a need to really start ramping up its own internal AI capabilities. This is exactly what lawmakers here in Washington, Ed, are concerned about, that AI is really ramping up their efforts, not just to have AI play a role in its economic capabilities, but military. And so, of course, this isn't just about what consumers have access to, but how it can be used against kind of national security. And this is exactly where we're seeing here in Washington actions on behalf of, for example, the Treasury Department imposing rules to curb investment that would support AI investment in some of these areas. And also, of course, curbs on chip exports. We're really starting to see both of these things really come together.
I think that what they're doing from a technical standpoint, I'm just reiterating what an OpenAI spokesperson told us, is that they are taking additional steps to block API traffic. I still find it astonishing that the origin of this story is people being able to access OpenAI from China through VPN. Just give me a little bit more on what you just said about the DC side of this. Joe Biden, President Biden, has some policy towards restricting Chinese products entering the United States, or tariffs, and the Treasury Department you mentioned as well. Are we expecting a sort of expansion of that activity?
That's a key question. I think if there's one area where lawmakers here in Washington have really come together, it's around the national security argument that China has capabilities in artificial intelligence and it will continue to bolster them. Now, you saw this with TikTok, really the concern that Chinese influence was coming through somehow in TikTok and influencing public opinion here through that tech. But then you look at artificial intelligence and what can be done with drones, for example, really things on the battlefield. This is where a lot of that concern is coming from. And so, of course, you're seeing chip manufacturing as kind of the hallmark example for the Biden administration really starting to take the lead here. It's all part of this broader strategy to really undercut Beijing's efforts to have AI kind of bolster its military capabilities.